Imagine sitting across from the 23rd executive to slide your demo back across the table. 23 times, some version of the same words. Not commercial enough, too hard, too rough, the wrong sound, the wrong look. 23 times someone looked at this woman, this guitarist who had already headlined arenas in Japan, who had already made audiences scream, and told her she didn't belong. Most people would have stopped, packed up the guitar, gone home. Joan Jett was not most people. What happened next would rewrite the rules of the music industry. Before we get into it, if you're new here, hit subscribe. I'm Marlo, and this is She Burned Bright, where we tell the real stories of the women who shaped rock history. Stories the music industry tried to bury. To understand why this matters, you have to understand where Joan Jett came from. Born Joan Marie Larkin in 1958, she picked up her first guitar around age 14. The moment she walked into her first guitar lesson, she was told, directly, without embarrassment, that girls don't play rock and roll. The teacher offered to teach her On Top of Old Smoky instead. She didn't go back. By 15, she was on the Sunset Strip, soaking up everything. Glam, punk, the raw electric feeling of music that was built to be loud. She met drummer Sandy West, and together they found their way to producer Kim Fowley, who had an idea for an all-girl rock band, something that had never been done at this level. The Runaways were born in 1975. From the very beginning, the industry decided what to make of them, a novelty. 5 teenage girls, sure, but could they actually play? Audiences in America regularly booed them, spat on them. Critics wrote them off. The Runaways weren't supposed to be taken seriously. They were supposed to fade away. But Japan didn't get that memo. In the summer of 1977, the Runaways landed in Japan and stepped into something none of them had ever experienced. At the airport, there were fans screaming, pushing against the barriers. Joan Jett described it as Beatlemania. Their song Cherry Bomb had topped the Japanese charts. Their live album recorded there went gold. In Japan, they were treated like what they actually were, a rock band, a serious, powerful, electric rock band. Back home, the reception was a different universe. America treated the Runaways like a joke, a stunt. The band cracked under that weight. By 1977, lead singer Sherry Curry had left. Joan Jett took over vocals and kept pushing, but by 1979, the Runaways were done. 4 years, 2 continents, an ocean of difference between how the world saw them. The breakup should have ended Joan Jett. It would have ended most people. Instead, something in her shifted. In May 1979, she met Kenny Laguna, a veteran songwriter and producer, at the Hyatt Hotel on Sunset Boulevard. They were brought together to wrap up some unfinished Runaways business. It was supposed to be a brief professional encounter. It turned into one of the most important partnerships in rock history. Laguna heard what Joan Jett was, not a novelty, not a problem to manage, but an artist. They started working on what would become her first solo record. Then came the wall. 23 record labels. 23 times the answer was no. No to bad reputation. No to her songs, including songs that would go on to become massive hits. No to the woman who had sold out arenas in Japan. The reasons were always some version of the same thing. Too hard, too androgynous, not the right sound, not what the market wanted. In other words, not what we're comfortable with. Most artists don't survive 23 rejections. The music industry counts on that. It counts on you getting tired, getting humiliated, deciding it isn't worth it. Joan Jett did not get tired. She got strategic. She and Kenny Laguna and his wife Meryl did something that almost no artist had done before. They decided to make the record themselves. In 1980, they founded Blackheart Records. They pressed copies of the album out of their own pockets, partly funded by Kenny Laguna's own account, by his daughter's college savings. And when the record was ready, they sold it the only way they could, out of the trunk of Kenny's Cadillac, at shows, by hand, one copy at a time. Think about that for a second. This was a woman who had played to crowds of thousands, who had been treated like a celebrity in another country, and she was selling her own records from a car trunk because 23 executives had decided she wasn't worth a contract. She did it anyway, not because it was glamorous, because the alternative was silence, and Joan Jett doesn't do silence. The album made it to Europe. It got into the hands of Neil Bogart, founder of Casablanca Records, one of the most successful independent labels in America, who immediately recognized what he was hearing. He signed her to his new label, Boardwalk Records, and re-released the album as Bad Reputation in 1981. And then came the song. Back in 1976, while on tour with the Runaways in England, Joan Jett had been in her hotel room watching British television when this band called the Arrows came on and played a song called I Love Rock and Roll. She was immediately obsessed. The Runaways had briefly considered recording it, but it never happened. After the breakup, she kept coming back to it. She recorded it with Kenny Laguna, and they released it in late 1981. Rock and roll stands for raw sexuality, she said, and that's threatening to some people. She knew exactly what she was doing. On March 20th, 1982, I Love Rock and Roll hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It stayed there for 7 consecutive weeks. 7 weeks. In the same music industry where, less than 3 years earlier, 23 people had told her she had no future, she owned the #1 song in America for almost 2 months. The thing about Joan Jett's story that gets overlooked is this. She didn't just survive the rejections. She built something that outlasted every single label that said no. Blackheart Records is still running today, one of the longest surviving artist-owned independent labels in history. She turned the industry's cruelty into infrastructure. More hits followed: Crimson and Clover, Bad Reputation, I Hate Myself for Loving You. She kept touring, kept recording, kept refusing to bend herself into something more palatable for people who were afraid of her. In 2015, Joan Jett was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She stood on that stage and said, "Hey Mom and Dad, did you ever think that Christmas guitar would lead to this? Rock and roll is an idea and an ideal." The 23 letters, the trunk of the Cadillac, the college savings spent pressing records nobody wanted to distribute. Every single indignity, all of it led to that stage. She didn't burn out. She burned longer and brighter than anyone who said no to her ever imagined. That's the Joan Jett story, not just a comeback, a refusal to disappear. If this story hit you, hit the like button. It tells me to keep making these. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. There are more stories just like this one waiting for you right here on this channel.